with the State Auditor's Office, and he's here with us today. So, Auditor, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. There are members, okay. And appreciate the opportunity.
Don't let everybody know about our attendance listening in.
Hey, this is better than most years, to be honest with you. So, Scott Fitzpatrick, State Auditor. Appreciate the opportunity to present our fiscal year 2027 budget request to you. I'll give you just a few brief opening remarks just to provide some context around our budget, and then we have a very short book. There's only 3 decision items in it, so we should be able to get through that fairly quickly. Happy to take any questions at any time. So this is my 3rd year. I've done 3 years now on the job. This is my 4th year. Some of you know when I got here in 2023, the office was at a historic low in terms of staffing, the number of people in the office. We were down to, there were 92 FTE, including the people I brought with me from the Treasurer's office and the Auditor's office the day we started. We were budgeted for 160, and so we were at almost a crisis level in terms of staffing. But we also were limited in our ability to staff up because the prior administration had, in order to keep up with the market, had used the vacancy PS to fund increases in salaries to try to stop the bleeding. So we had the FTE, but we didn't have the money to fund actually replacing all of them. So we went through the process of asking for a budget increase in 2023, went through the legislative process. We were not in the office in time to make a department request to the governor. That ended up getting added in the budget, but it was vetoed by the governor. And so we came back the following year and we got a supplemental to get us at least partially through, through the last part of the year. And then we're able to get the governor on board with the NDI that we had tried to get the prior year. So we didn't get that until the 2024 session, which was fiscal year 2025. So this is our 2nd year with that. We've made progress on staffing the office back up. We're at 120 FTE now. So we've added about 27 auditors to the office since we came in. And we are trying to be very judicious with the money. Our administrative spend, we're 25% below the prior administration in terms of my kind of executive team, what we're spending on that. We have fewer FTE. They had 3 comms people. We have 1. For instance, my chief of staff is also handling legislative duties. So we've tried to consolidate as many roles as we can within the office and not have any extra people hanging around on the payroll. So we appreciate that consideration, and we're still a little ways away from full staffing, so you will see that we have some lapse for last fiscal year. But again, last fiscal year was our first year with the new appropriation to be able to begin staffing up, and we anticipate within the next year to year and a half that we'll be back to kind of where we intend to be long-term staffing-wise. So with that, I will jump into the budget unless there's any questions.
Yes, I do have one question. You went through there and your staff's done with somebody that represents as many counties. I get that I do. I get emails from your staff once in a while about audits, but this isn't necessarily around that. As we've listened to people all over the country talk about fraud, that was part of the tremendous amount of federal spending that went in. And I can remember you serving in a position similar to this and talking about it, and the fact that House Bill 20, I don't remember was exactly your idea, but it was something close to that, to be able to do that. So at the end of this statement, here's the question. Whistleblowers to the auditor's office around federal funds, are you willing to say, had there been any of that sent to your office, or would you expect those to only go to the AG's office if this citizen wants to turn somebody in? Have you been seeing any of those yet in your office?
We have, and there are some examples of the pandemic money being used inappropriately at the local level. We're getting ready to release a report on a city that got about $100,000 of ARPA money, and the city council and the mayor just divvied it up between themselves and their and the city clerk and a couple city employees and gave themselves all bonuses. Used 100% of the, almost all of the ARPA money that they got just to give themselves bonuses. So that report will be coming out soon. There was a city in St. Louis County, the city of Velda City. That one's publicly out there at this point. Charges have been filed against the former city police chief because he used pandemic money to buy a tow truck that he then basically put into service in his private towing business, and used city money to do that. So it's been a lot of things like that. In terms of the larger fraud that you kind of are thinking of with relation to some of the pandemic programs that were administered by the state, the food programs, the summer food programs, the child care subsidy programs that have been in the news in Minnesota. We did do an audit of some of the food programs that were pandemic era programs, and put a report out on that. I think that was last year that we put that report out. And we look at, when we do an audit like that, we're looking primarily at the department's administration of the program and their controls over monitoring the subrecipients. So when we say subrecipients, I'm talking about like the actual nonprofit entities or whoever that are receiving these grants. So we go in, we look at what kind of job, how good of a job is the department doing monitoring these subrecipients. And so we had a lot of findings. There were several findings in that report, but really the big issue that we identified there was that one was the Department of Health, that they were kind of doing the bare minimum in terms of subrecipient monitoring. And when I say the bare minimum, I mean if they went and they would do a check on a subrecipient for like a specific period of time, and they found an overpayment, it could be even 100% of 100% overpayment, they would claw that money back, but they wouldn't then look at any prior periods. And so our position was, look, if you identify an overpayment, a significant overpayment in one period, there's a good chance that there's probably an overpayment in the prior periods as well. And to just stop at the one period you're looking at and not expand that look into other prior periods you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. When I say overpayment, meaning they're claiming a reimbursement that they weren't entitled to based on the number of meals they actually provided versus what they, or the number of meals they could show that they provided versus what they claim they provided. And so the department's response to that was kind of, well, we're meeting the minimum federal standard or federal requirement on this. And our position on that was, well, just because you're meeting the minimum federal requirement does not mean you're doing really, it's not a best practice, right, the way it's being done. So we've had some questions about, can we do something with subrecipients? So what I would say is, if it's a government entity at the moment, like in the case of the city that gave out the bonuses to all their employees, that's fully within our wheelhouse. When it goes to the nonprofits or the subrecipients, currently we can only look at subrecipients if we're in an audit. So, when we go into an audit, we're committing to doing that, to auditing standards. We have to assign the staff. It's a pretty big commitment of resources and time. We don't have the authority to initiate an investigation of one of those subrecipients if we get a whistleblower complaint about a subrecipient. We're open to receiving that authority and would be happy to do that when it's a financial matter. Obviously, the Attorney General's office does a lot of consumer protection stuff, and they work on a lot of nonprofit type activity. We're open to having some additional responsibility there if the legislature wants to give that to us, but as it stands now, we don't really have a direct line into the subrecipients unless we're in an audit, and even at that point, it really kind of requires cooperation from the department, whichever department we're auditing, and that is sometimes not always forthcoming. If we have a lot of cooperation, it makes it a lot easier to do, but sometimes we don't get a tremendous amount of cooperation. I'm not saying that's all the time. Sometimes we get great cooperation, but in certain instances we do not.
Thank you, Auditor.
Yep. Please begin. Okay, so first decision item in our book is on page 3. This is our core decision item. This funds our entire office. As you can see, we have mostly general revenue funding our office. Then we also have some federal funding and some which are federal funding. We have a federal fund, which is we bill the state agencies for our work on the single audit, and they reimburse us for that. The single audit's a federally required audit of the federal funds that we use through the state. And then we have a petition audit fund, which is it's basically when we get a petition in to do an audit, the statute requires the entity to pay us for that audit, and we bill them to that, so that activity in that fund can be kind of sporadic. Sometimes we'll have a big petition audit, like if we get the city of St. Louis, we'll get millions of dollars into that, and we'll be paying auditors out of there. And then sometimes we'll not have much petition activity for a year or two, and there's not as much activity in that fund. So you'll see some lapse in that one from just because it's unpredictable as to how often it's going to get used. Next decision item is on page, and I said page 3. I guess I should have told you that was on page 2. Sorry about that. For the first one, shows the GR federal and other. Page 10 is a new decision item. This is $26,000 and a half of an FTE for the responsibilities assigned to us and the constitutional amendment authorizing or legalizing sports betting. That amendment puts a responsibility on us to conduct an audit of basically the revenues received and appropriated from the sports betting program, and this is the amount that we put in the fiscal note for that when we filled that out. And we had requested GR, but the governor fund swapped that to the Gaming Commission fund instead. So just a note there.
Within that charge that the auditors have, you talked about also the appropriation. So work we do on this committee and pass here as we touch those funds, you're looking at us to see if we're following the Constitution, or your office will be, or whether maybe the appropriation chair decides to spend that money to buy me a car or something like that. Those are the things you're looking at, right?
I suppose so. Yeah, we haven't done that audit yet. This is the first year, so we haven't gotten into setting out the audit objectives. But the way we
appropriate money must follow.
Yes, yeah.
The Constitution,
we would look at that.
Not what one of us might think it ought to follow.
That could potentially be a finding. If the Constitution says it needs to go to education, you guys use it for Medicaid, then we would probably put that in the report. but yeah, so that is our new responsibility there. Page 12. So this one was not recommended by the governor, and we understand this is going to be a rough year, and we probably got a few of those ahead of us. But we have a CPA problem brewing in our office. It's not just in our office. There's a CPA shortage nationwide, and there's just fewer people are pursuing their CPA certification. And there's some legislation out there to try to address that. It would allow, currently you have to have 150 hours, college hours, to sit for the CPA exam. The bills that are moving now would allow that to go down to 120 hours plus on-the-job experience that you could combine to meet the experience requirements to take the CPA exam. We're very much in favor of that. We do have some people in our office that are pursuing the CPA, but you have to take 4 different tests. It's a 4-part test that you have to take to achieve that. We currently have 19 CPAs in our office, but out of those, 13 are they're either retired and working part-time, eligible to retire, or they're going to be eligible to retire in the next 10 years. So, that leaves us 6, if we have a mass exodus. And so we're very much concerned about that, and we understand that this is maybe not the year. And what this did was it would have taken it would have increased our CPA stipend. So we give, we have job classifications, but then there's a stipend on top of the job classification pay if you have your CPA that we add on top of that. So this would have increased that from so $8,000 to $18,000 for the CPAs in the office. Currently, it's 8. It would have got we're going to increase it by $10,000 to try to attract more CPAs.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you find your CPAs using AI in your office?
So we have just begun in the last several months to try to work with AI. I'd say really in the last year, and the limitations that we have are confidentiality based. We're not comfortable using models that are or putting information in that's being used to train the model because we have a lot of confidentiality requirements in our statutes that it would concern us putting something in just your average ChatGPT or something like that. So because the state has Microsoft 365 now, we have access to Copilot, which is we're able to use that offline. Where basically it's what it's called FedRAMP approved, meaning basically that your data is secure and it's a level of certification that you can achieve with a software application that is kind of the highest standard of security. And so we have begun using artificial intelligence in some ways. We've just implemented an AI policy in the office kind of governing what auditors are allowed to do with AI. So they're allowed to use it. They can put data into it to do some data analytics stuff. They can use it to assist in report drafting. But we're still very early into it. It's not, I don't think, been widely used by the office, but we do have some auditors that are beginning to use AI in certain
You might keep an eye on us
applications.
because apparently we're trying to criminalize CPAs using AI. So
I saw that. Yeah, I actually saw that yesterday.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Honor, very much.
Thank you.
No, wait just a minute.
Sorry.
Too late.
Well, it's not too late. We just bring you back up. It's good to see you. And I'm actually afraid to interact with you because I'm afraid what's going to go into your world's greatest podcast as a result of me asking you any questions. My head's showing up on a crazy
appreciate
meme.
you being a good sport.
It's actually very funny and creative, so I appreciate it very much. You wrote an article the other day about the Chiefs.
Stop. What's a podcast? Have I been in it? Okay, finish your question.
You know what? I was actually thinking about asking Senator Searpoy to target a couple of your comm staff because he's really good at that.
I only have one.
Well, it's there's a lot of guilt in that office. I think that ought to go around.
I've tried to zero it out, and he keeps showing up.
He just keeps showing up. Well, they're all great friends, and I appreciate you guys. But what fascinated me was your article the other day, or your opinion piece in the Kansas City Star. And I don't know what you know other than maybe you just had an opinion on the Chiefs going to Kansas. What is this? What do you think from your perspective? If you don't have any information on what this is going to cost Missouri going forward when they leave, and we have a massive stadium in Kansas City, and what do we do with it? Do you have any knowledge on what that looks like going forward in the future for that whole facility?
I don't, and I talked to Pete Mundo Monday morning about that, and he kind of asked me the same question. And the answer is it's not free to have a giant empty sports complex. And so, and as the op-ed said, it's not all rainbows and sunshine because it is sad that we're going to have an empty Arrowhead Stadium and an empty Kauffman Stadium in about 5 years. There's no good answer for that. What happened, I guess the last time I was paying attention to a stadium that kind of was put out of commission was Detroit about 20 years ago, and they ended up just selling that thing off to a developer. I think he paid $400,000 for it and demoed it, and you try to redevelop it. So long term, does it make sense to have a giant football stadium and a giant baseball stadium sitting out in East Kansas City not being used? I would say no. There's going to be a lot of, I think, thought that goes into that decision being made by the Sports Complex Authority, you all in the legislature, the governor. But ultimately, we got a little bit of time to figure that out. And I think that it's the most likely scenario is that the Chiefs end up moving to Kansas City, but I also think that they have a Star bond project currently in default, and if you just look at kind of the raw numbers on the revenue being generated in the initially proposed Star Bond District, it seems like it'll be challenging to sell those bonds without some modifications to those boundaries, expanding or moving their base rate, because the Commerce Secretary has the authority to set the base year over there of what they're going to begin kind of the calculating the base sales tax revenue on. So if they want to go back to 1935 or whatever as the base year and count all the growth in sales tax they've had since then maybe that would work. But it seems like it's going to be a stretch without some significant modifications to the initial plan to sell those bonds. But I'm not a bond broker, and I'm not going to buy them. I'm certainly not going to buy those bonds as an investor, and I wouldn't even think to consider that unless they made some modifications to it. So I think there's a chance that deal falls apart. I'm not saying it's a high chance, but I do think there is a chance that happens. And if that does happen, then maybe we can have another conversation about Arrowhead and Kaufman.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Senator Nuremberg.
Just very briefly, Auditor, honestly, just a comment, really commending you and your office for the great work you're doing across the state. Despite limited staff, despite dwindling CPAs, you all just continue to knock it out of the park, and really grateful for you being a watchdog for all of us, so thank you.
Well, thank you. They all work very hard, and I'm grateful for the staff that we do have. And when we showed up, there weren't very many of them, but the ones that were there were working very hard, and we've been able to build on that a little bit. So I appreciate the kind words.
I got one comment. So I'm terming out, so I understand you have a position waiting for me. That's what I was told.
You ready to audit?
Absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Auditor, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a good day, rest of your day. Hopefully we didn't start it out by ruining it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Attorney General, I think probably my question to the auditor, when I looked at you, you were thinking about how you were going to answer that, because that is going to be a question after you get done, and I've got one other one, but welcome.
Thank you very
And
much,
please
Mr. Chairman,
begin.
members of the committee. Appreciate the time and the review of our proposed budget. I also have just a couple of opening remarks, particularly since it's the first time I've been before your committee. I just want to talk a little bit about the priorities for the office right now. Number one priority is to try to reduce violent crime across the state, and obviously that requires great partnership with local prosecutors and sheriffs and chiefs of police. Second priority is what I'm calling the Vice Squad, and it's a combination of going after VLTs, illegal cannabis stores that just open all over the state without any kind of a license, the hemp products that are at intoxicating levels, and maybe on that list, most importantly, 7-0H. It's killing people in our state. Third priority is to protect Missourians from fraud. It could come in the form of Medicaid fraud, consumer fraud, the telemarketers who target particularly our elderly. It's a target-rich environment. Those aren't big cases, but if it's your roof that you put a $5,000 deposit on and nobody showed up to do the work, it's turned your life upside down. So we're going to continue to focus on those cases. And then finally, the last priority is to have excellence in our office in terms of recruiting the best people, retaining the best people. Like the auditor, have a very strong team of people who do great work, but we need more of them, and we have quite a few FTE that we need to fill. I just wanted to point to a couple of things that are going on right now that I think are aligned with those priorities. One of those is a lawsuit against Dollar General that maybe some of you have seen in the news. Our Consumer Fraud Division did an incredible job of investigating this. They did over 5,000 buys at Dollar General stores, 197 stores total. And what they concluded is that on average, the prices being charged to people at the cash register were $7 higher than what they were marked on the shelves. Well, for the people who are shopping at Dollar General, $7 week after week can make a big difference. That's going to go to trial this summer. We have had some settlement offers in that case. They aren't high enough for me. This is really hurting people, and we want to recover a large sum in that. We were pleased that the Jackson County assessment case, that the verdict at the trial level was upheld by the Court of Appeals. It is on transfer to the Missouri Supreme Court right now. But in that case, after very large assessments, we were able to get the assessments for property taxes in Jackson County effectively capped at a growth rate of 15% without an inspection. Just a couple other cases I want to point to. About a month ago now, our team got a conviction of a defendant named Simpson. The trial was in Union, but it was 2 police officers shot in a Casey's in Herman, one of them fatally, the other one shot in the head, terrible brain damage as a result. There was a conviction, and the jury did impose the death penalty in that case. Those are super tough cases, and I am really proud of our team that they're able to do that kind of difficult work day in and day out. And then, as you all know, we have filed suit against Misha for discriminatory practices, and in this year picked up representation of the St. Louis Police Department. There are fully 70 pending cases related to that department alone that we're trying to work through with the new board. So those are just a few of the things on the list, and I'm happy to start going through the book if you're ready, or if you have some questions before I start doing that.
You want to- Senator Zerboy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I guess Madam Speaker is no longer accurate. But,
No, it's so good to see you, Senator.
you too. Good to see you. I'm just curious. So, in your opinion, because we're all getting bombarded about these VLT things, in your opinion, present state law is strong enough to ban them and make them illegal? If a
think
prosecutor would pursue it.
I think they are absolutely illegal. The decision from Judge Ross over in the Eastern District that came out last week confirmed that for a second time.
Okay.
And the AG's office does have concurrent jurisdiction with county prosecutors. I don't know why it wasn't exercised in the past. The patrol's done a tremendous job of investigating these machines. I think the evidence is there for us to start moving forward at a pretty rapid pace.
Okay, so I'm always told that, I know Eric Zahn did up in Platte County several years ago, but I've always been told the prosecutors in these different counties simply won't do anything. So the state law would allow them to do it, they just haven't, and now you can help push that along maybe?
Well, and some of them have attempted to. I don't think we should say that they haven't been doing it. The problem has been, these are big companies that own these machines. Mm-hmm. So they've rolled in there with an army of lawyers. And when you're a county prosecutor who might have 4,000 pending cases and they're murder, mayhem, and rape, getting to the VLT cases just is tough, particularly if they require a lot of briefing, which they do. They're highly technical. They require expert witnesses. And my message to county prosecutors is, we'll help however you want us to. So if you want to bring the cases and have us do some of the briefing, mm-hmm. we'll do that. If you want us to loan you some talent, we'll do that, or if you just want us to do the cases.
Okay.
So
has an appeals court ever weighed in on these?
They have not, and interestingly, that case you referred to that Eric Zahn did was not appealed.
Right.
And I think because they didn't want a binding
You're
appellate
right.
court
Okay.
decision.
Thank you very much.
Senator Byrne.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, I wanted to tag team what Senator Zierpoi was asking on. But first of all, I just really want to commend you for all of the work that you've done in a very short time. I was looking through just the host of press releases, and it's one thing after another, from going against the pharmacy benefit managers for their insolent pricing schemes, to again really getting down to one of the things that I think is probably one of the largest threats to kids right now are the gas station drugs. From going after the intoxicating cannabinoids, the stuff that looks like, we've had all these conversations like candy and targeted towards kids, to hemp and even now 7-OH, which is incredibly dangerous. So thanks for your office for working with us. I know this is something that Senator Henderson is also very passionate about, making sure that kids and people at risk are not falling into addiction on these things. So thank you. So with that being said, you've got a lot going on. Do you anticipate needing additional resources to be able to continue meeting these objectives?
So we have asked for a modest increase in this budget, 4 additional people from GR to dedicate to public protection, and then 11 total people for consumer fraud, but out of the consumer fraud funds that we generate. And so it's not coming out of GR, it's money that we go out and collect. But right now, if we could get those additional people, it would be very helpful, and the governor has recommended that in his budget.
And then how many, you spoke a little bit about being able to fill some of your vacant FTE. What's the plan there?
So very aggressive recruiting at the law schools, but also everywhere I go, I'm talking about it. I was just at WashU a couple weeks ago having that discussion. I was at the Missouri Lawyers Weekly luncheon last Thursday. It's what I talk about in terms of my priorities everywhere I go, and just a lot of outreach to lawyers I know trying to recruit laterals as well. We have almost 30 people who are going to start next fall right out of law school. Right now, I probably need more experienced people to join the team, and we're trying to find people who are interested in public service and willing to come over.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for those efforts. And again, I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the illegal gaming machines. So now we have the ruling from the Eastern District Judge saying that, yes, affirming what I think a lot of us have believed for a long time, that these are illegal machines, and that's your understanding as well as
Yes.
state statute. Okay. So then what is essentially your ultimate goal in with the gaming litigation that you are pursuing?
So my goal is to enforce the law, whatever you all say the law is. Right now, the law says these machines are illegal, and my larger concern, and this is aligned with my goal of reducing violent crime in the state, is to make sure that no one believes they can come to Missouri and make millions, hundreds of millions of dollars engaging in illegal activity. I am very concerned that it is going to contribute to violent crime, and so that's why I'm kind of putting them under a single umbrella of the Vice Squad, because I think the drugs, the gaming, the selling to kids, all those things combined, we're going to start getting turf wars and other very dangerous activity if law enforcement continues to sit idly by and let all this go on. If you guys say it's legal, okay, that changes the game, the playing field entirely. But whatever you decide, that's for you guys to decide. Whatever you decide the law is,
Sure.
I'll enforce it.
But based on current statute, your understanding, yes, these things are illegal.
Yep.
And I like that term, I'm going to say you just coined, but the Vice Squad. I think that's really where we're at in these gastinos that we're seeing right now with so much going on. So it's something. So again, really appreciate your work there. But so now that we have this ruling, now we know that your office is really taking aim at these illegal machines. Is there any reason for bars and gas stations not to begin immediately removing these devices?
They should start removing them.
Today.
Today. They're illegal. Law enforcement's coming after them. They should start pulling them out. I was reading probable cause statements last night from the patrol. There's one on a residence that has 11 machines in it. I mean, this is a ubiquitous problem all over the state, and we've got to start doing something about it.
Well, thank you. So start removing them today. is
Today.
your words. Or what?
Or they may be targeted. Like, we're going to work from the worst first. We can't get everywhere all at once, but we're going to look at the establishments that have the most machines, start there. And we're not just going to go after the retailers who have these machines. We're going to work up the chain to those who are distributing them and manufacturing them. But in any law enforcement enterprise, that's how you work, because you collect evidence as you work up the chain.
Again, really commend you for these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Fitzwater. Who's first? It's nice. You guys are all so nice. Senator Harrison.
Okay.
Beauty before baldness. Go ahead.
I don't take offense to that, but I wanted to thank you for your stance on 708. You and I have had that conversation before. I don't think most people, it's funny, I've gone around the Senate, I've talked to other members of the House, and I get the response, what's 708? What does it do? So I'm just want to thank you for getting that out to the forefront, because I think people don't know what it is and what's happening out there and the negative effects it can have. And there's a vape shop right down the street from where my grandson lives, and the local police have told me, we've been sending in undercovers trying to figure out if that's available in there, and they think it is. And so I just don't think most people know how bad that situation is. I've got some legislation we're going to work on this year, and thank you for your help in that area.
No, Senator, thank you for sponsoring the legislation. I want to thank Senator Nuremberg as well for sponsoring the legislation. As you know, we're hearing from coroners around the state that this drug is killing people, that it's a synthetic opioid derived from kratom and hits all the opioid receptors. And interestingly, I was told by law enforcement just the other day that part of the reason they know it acts just like an opioid is that Narcan will revive people who've OD'd on it, and Narcan only works on opioids. So this is really dangerous that you can buy it over the counter.
Well, I thank you, and Senator Nuremberg and myself, and I think we've agreed to work on this together, and we're going to do what we can.
Thank you very much.
Senator Washington. We're just going to go, we're going to start over here on this end. Get
Beauty.
your questions
It's the beauty
ready
thing.
to my left, and then we're going to work our way back around the other way, because my head
and I have
doesn't
to go to
bobble that
another
much
committee.
this time of day.
Thank you, Attorney General, for being here. You know how much I admire you. Just one quick question, and I don't know if you even have the numbers. You mentioned that a lot of places where the illegal, whatever you want to call them, gray machines, slot machines, whatever, that there's also a lot of drugs and other violence going on. Could you get me some numbers on that? Because we have a lot of them in our community that I hate, but these are not places where drugs and violence are going on. These are old people who can't get to the casino.
Yeah, so I don't have numbers generally statewide on that. I can tell you that a single vape shop in downtown St. Louis has
I don't
had-
live there, so
I know, but this is the only one I have a
okay.
number on. 1,500 calls to the police in the last
Well,
year.
I'm more concerned about your correlation between the gaming machines and the drugs and violence is more what I'm concerned about, because if that's the case, then we need to work with our local, but we're not having the violence at the gas stations as much as they in the way. And I see a lot of very, very senior people
Yes.
that are probably spending more than they would spend at a casino.
And that's what I'm very concerned about at those retail locations. The increased violence that I'm worried about is more at the organized crime level. I mean,
Okay.
this is a lot of cash moving.
But we don't have that in Kansas City no more. Just want to go on record.
Yeah, never.
Thank you.
No more.
Senator Serpoy, a follow-up question, please.
Thank you. I have already done my allotted question. I texted the county that you're presenting, and county said to say hi.
Please give her my very best.
I hope you had this much time on your, blocked out for us on your
Totally.
schedule, Attorney General. Senator Crawford.
This is going to be a lot lighter than the questions you've already been asked. Could you either now or offline get me some info on the Jewel case, the smokeless tobacco funds that are coming in? Are you dispersing those back out, or can you get me some info on that?
Yeah, and I am going to have to follow up, and I think you guys all know Rhonda Meyer. She's been here many years. In fact, she told me the first time she ever came to the Senate was with her dad when she was 4 years old. So we are pretty darn lucky in the Attorney General's office that she has stayed on, but we'll get you an answer for sure.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator May.
Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
I appreciate the fact that you're really going after the consumer fraud. Consumers are just reeling with the emails and stuff, on the local level. And I really appreciate going after the, what I call gray machines, because they're everywhere in the neighborhoods where I am. Every gas station, everything. Now, I'm in favor of legalized VLTs. That's no secret. But I'm in favor of them being in a bar where you're 21 and over, or, the VFWs, things like that. But I am not in favor of them being in convenience stores and gas stations. That's just me personally. We have alcohol, which is, everybody talk about all the other drugs. Alcohol still is the #1 killer the number one killer drug ever. And I don't drink, okay, whatever. But anyway, I just want to ask you this question. So how do we deal with the entities who are receiving this stuff that they're selling through the internet? Like it's like, they're ordering it already, prepackaged and selling it. How do we combat that, or I don't know how to
Yeah, I mean,
address
to the
that.
extent that we have the jurisdiction, like this most recent case we filed against a store called Pressure STL, they're selling a ton online as well as selling it through their retail location. And our allegations there are that they're selling the THC infused products that look like Chips Ahoy cookies and Skittles and Laffy Taffy. And obviously those are being marketed to kids. And so we're going to be able to hopefully shut down both their retail location and what they're doing online. But, sometimes we have jurisdictional issues, and that will be, I'll tell you what will help with that is cooperation with other AGs, and I am talking to other AGs around the country about what we can do, because it is a national problem.
Okay. And did the feds, one more question, I thought they gave an admonishment to these big companies that were dealing with packaging in reference to products. But these are people that are operating outside or are the same, or did the feds put any teeth in it, or they just...
I don't think the feds, if we're thinking about the same thing, I don't think they put a lot of teeth in it. But that is a question that I've had, and I actually am going to spend some time reaching out to these big companies whose trademarks are clearly being infringed.
Yes.
It seems to me that they have a lot of money to help us shut down these folks. And if you don't protect your trademark, then you lose the right to exercise it. So I would think they'd be very interested, and I can't believe that it isn't kind of on their radar screen.
Me either, but I've talked to them too, so I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Fitzwater.
Thank you. Good to see you, General. And sorry, all of your events that you've had, I've just not been able to get to. So I feel like, even though I'm thrilled that you're now our Attorney General, I'm sorry I haven't been able to
I understand you're
celebrate
kind of busy
alongside
these
you.
days too.
Lots going on. I have two things. One, pharmacy benefit managers. What can the AG's office do in that space that really makes an impact for patients in Missouri?
Well, I think this lawsuit we've filed over insulin should be a really good first step in the right direction, because it's going to expose the fact that the pharmacy benefit managers they set a price, and it's a complicated scheme. They set a price for a drug. It's super high. And that's what the price they end up charging their insureds and their customers, but then they get a giant rebate from the manufacturers. And they actually pressure these manufacturers really hard so that the margins for pharmacy benefit managers are gigantic. And I don't think the general public knows that. I don't think these big companies who use pharmacy benefit managers know that. And I think as we get that exposed and start to recover, I mean, I can't tell you how infuriated I am about this insulin case. This is a life-saving drug. It's life-sustaining. People can't live without it. There isn't a substitute, and it's not a new drug. There's no argument that there's R&D and we have to pay all these other things. And the price has gone from like $4 a dose to like $400 a dose. And we have about a quarter of the Missourians who are on Medicaid and diabetic who can't afford this drug. It's a big problem, and we're a little bit late to getting to the other party, to this party. Other states have beat us there, but we're there now, and we're going to get some recovery from
I
them.
appreciate that. And the way I understand it is like you just mentioned, is that I think the big three PBMs, which hold about 80% of the market, they go to pharmaceutical manufacturers and they say, we have this massive amount of the market, and we want this price for this with the rebate, and inflates the cost incredibly. The pharmaceutical manufacturers are kind of bent over the barrel because they obviously don't want their market share to be impacted. And so it's a really complex system that's hurting patients while these organizations are hitting record profits. And I'm a free market guy. I just think that this isn't a free market. I think that there's some antitrust issues that are really concerning.
Yeah,
you have
I
vertical
agree.
integration. They own every line of the system, And then they're putting our independent pharmacies out of business because they can't compete where these vertically integrated organizations get to control pricing at every level. And so, there's a lot there. I appreciate your efforts just right out the gate on that. But that's something our state needs to wrap its mind around, that, and I appreciate that. The second thing I have is I've developed a couple of relationships at Jefferson City Correctional Center. And it's hard to go over there and interact with some of these offenders who are going to be there the rest of their lives. And you'd think you'd experience kind of a lack of hope because some of them will never get out for the crimes that they've committed. But some of them also are incredibly hopeful in the midst of the crimes they admit that they should be in prison for the rest of their life for. But there are some where it's really interesting how they got there and the concern behind how they got there. I have one in particular I'd love to talk to your office about that concerns me about the justice they've received. And I don't know what the Attorney General's office, I know you're going to go to bat for your prosecutors, so it's hard to, it's hard to understand how we can potentially rectify a situation, but as I read it, it's highly concerning. And I'd just love to go to bat for a couple of those folks if it's possible to ensure that justice is, because not 100% of offenders are out there are going to be guilty, and they also, most of them, I would say that they need to be there for the crimes they've committed and they have to pay the penalty. But that's also nuanced, as you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if somebody from your office come meet with me about this. I would love to talk to
Absolutely,
somebody
we
about
can.
where do I go from here.
And every good prosecutor that I know wants to do justice, not just like convict people. And if there are people that were unjustly convicted, let's take a look.
And public defender stuff, it's hard. You get a public defender, and this is 20-some years ago that this person had to deal with the court system and has gone through appeals. There's a lot to it. So would love some help on how to think about it.
Definitely.
Thank
Let's
you.
have that conversation.
Thank you very much, Attorney General, but I'm going to add one more question before the beginning. It does deal with some funding in the tobacco settlement. We see that going up and down,
Yes.
correct? Well, it looks like our crowd's kind of gone partially. But I think that if you can explain it, or somebody on your staff explain it, let's remind people about tobacco settlement, because we're also going to be dealing with the same thing with the opioid, and opioids still at a point where it's growing because not everything's done with that. But these funds are not there forever, and the tobacco settlement's one of them that you could shed light on, or somebody could come up the microphone and let us remember it's going to go up, it's going to go down, some of the particulars of that case and what caused it to be this way.
Yeah, so it is a settlement, obviously, with the big three tobacco companies that pays out perpetually. But we have to go back and review the years. Missouri has an obligation to do what it can to enforce the tobacco laws. And so before the payments are made out of the escrow that the big three tobacco companies set up, we have an arbitration to determine whether Missouri did everything it could to enforce the tobacco laws. The process is so slow that we just completed the arbitration for 2005. And so these monies sit in escrow for a long time. They do go up and down. I'll be totally transparent. We're going to appeal the arbitration, but it did not come out well for us. They did not think our Department of Revenue did a good job of enforcing the tobacco laws. And the fact that it lags so much makes it really tough. Like, we can't go back and change anything from 20 years ago. But the next time you see a dip will be because we aren't going to get paid out the full amount for some years going forward based on what they need to claw back from 2005. And the other thing is tobacco sales are declining, which, ultimately was part of the objective, was to get people to stop smoking. And so that's the other reason the number will go down over time.
Okay, that answered 3 or 4 of my bullet points, but to drive this idea home, like for fiscal year 26 that we're currently in, do you know what that settlement amount's going to be? Don't we receive it sometime this spring, right?
Right.
Do we have a concrete dollar amount at this time? We probably do for that payment.
We have an approximate amount if we don't take the hit from '05. So if we don't take the hit from '05, if we don't kind of eat it this year, it's approximately $90 million, but the hit is substantial. It's $42 million. And so if we wouldn't appeal, we'd take that hit this year. We're continuing to try and look at really creative ways to keep the number a little bit more steady. I think we are going to appeal, so it shouldn't hit this year, but it may hit next year if we lose the appeal. So
Book. Let's begin.
okay.
I think we began. Let's start looking at numbers.
Okay, I'm going to go right to page 2, which has the overview of our budget. As you can see, we do get substantial sources from federal and other. So the GR request that we made was $19,700,000 and some change, and then we have about $3.2 million in federal and about 14 from other sources for a total of 36. The governor's recommendation only deviated by $200,000, and that difference is related to family law clinic at Mizzou. For some reason, that amount was reduced $200,000. We think this family law clinic can go on fine without it. We're not concerned about that reduction. So then the next tab that I want to bring your attention to, or page I want to bring your attention to, is on page 11, which is our Consumer Protection Division, and this is a new decision item. This is where I was talking about 11 additional FTE, 5 of which would be lawyers, 4 investigators, 1 paralegal, 1 secretary. This is not GR money. It all comes out of the Merchandising Practices Revolving Fund, and that's money that we collect as we prosecute consumer fraud. So presumably, if we have more people, we'll collect even more money. Right now, the balance in that fund is about $26 million, so there is plenty of money to fund the increases. The next place I want to go is page 15. This is the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. And these are mostly federal funds. It's a 75-25 split. We continue to go forward. I will say we did need to do some recruiting here. We're not asking for any more FTE. We just need to fill some spots, and we'll keep working on that. If any of you know good investigators who are looking for a place to apply their talents, send them our way. Page 22 is the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative, and I just want to report that we are totally caught up on all of those tests. What we're working on now is making sure that we use the evidence collected in them to help county prosecutors actually bring prosecutions. We have a grant that's going to be expiring in September. We've applied for 3 additional grants, and really this is just a pass-through, the ability to allow us to pass through those grants to continue to fund this unit. Any questions about that one? All right. And then going on to what looks like a new decision item on page 28, that actually shows you the deployment of those funds, and it will be used for 2 lawyers, 4 investigators, and 2 paralegals. And this is the actual authority to deploy that money. On page 31 is our Violent Crimes Task Force. Nothing new here. These are the prosecutors that work on violent crime and that assist counties when they ask for assistance or are conflicted out of cases, such as the one I described from Gasconade County with the 2 police officers. Page 37 is the Violent Crimes Task Force new decision item where this is the one place we're asking for some new GR. There's a lot of violent crime in the state. It's obviously my highest priority. We would like to add 4 new people to that team. And I will tell you, we have a lot of talented lawyers. These lawyers go all over the state and just do a superb job, and 4 more of them would be very helpful. The next tab is on page 40. This is the Attorney General Trust. This is kind of a strange thing, but when we get settlement funds, we put them into this fund and then pay them out. And we really just keep a balance of about $4 million in there as sort of the float, so that there is cash available when we need to pay something out, but it's largely money coming in from settlements and getting paid back out. On page 45, this is just a transfer of court costs. They just flow through this fund. I look at this as kind of seed money for our court costs, but eventually we do sort of catch up, but we, again, need the float. Page 50 is our antitrust transfer fund. These people, by and large, fund themselves. We have 7 full-time employees. It's mostly consumer cases in the antitrust section, but it does take some GR just to keep it going. And then on page 55 is our human trafficking efforts. And it's unfortunate Senator Washington isn't here, because that's one thing I'd like to make sure that you all know is going on in the Kansas City area. We are really ramping up our human trafficking training efforts in advance of the World Cup games there. We anticipate that there will be a lot of human trafficking around that event. No additional funds requested there.
Senator Nurnberg.
Would you just tell us a little bit about that in terms of your efforts to combat human trafficking? And we, unfortunately, that is the downside of bringing 650,000 people
Yes.
to our state. There's going to be some bad actors in there. So what is your office doing?
So we are working with federal authorities. We are working with the Jackson County prosecutor. We're working with the police chief. We're doing a training, I believe it's March 9th, for all those groups. We're participating in a task force that I think the feds originally convened. We're also working very closely, and there was one in our office yesterday, with the NGOs, who particularly are helpful once we have, made an arrest, to placing the victims someplace that, hopefully is safe for them. So since we don't have original jurisdiction, we can be most effective in training those who do. But we certainly are there for backup as well if they need any kind of backup, whether it's investigators or lawyers to assist.
Thank you.
Senator May.
So when we were in the House, that I don't know how long ago that was. It's about 8 years ago or whatever. They had gave us some numbers about how Missouri was increasing in this area. Has that changed? Is it still rising for the human trafficking for our state?
Well, I think we're going to see a big rise with the World Cup. The problem, part of the problem is that Missouri has interstates 44, 70, and 55, all of which are kind of super highways for both drugs and human trafficking. And the fact that they all come together in St. Louis really creates a problem. So we have disproportionately large numbers of human trafficking cases relative to other states. I think a big part of getting a handle on it has been the education and re-education of law enforcement that these people are victims. But I think I do think we're making real progress in that regard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're using young people, or they're molding young people to go get other young people. I've encountered 3 cases since I've been in this position, and one of the girls was at a at one of the children's facility, but the girl that like coerced her to come out, hang out, whatever, later drugged her with a bottle of water or whatever. And so they don't even know they're getting ready to be trafficked. I can't even say it this morning, because of the relationship they're building with the person that's being used to go get those people. So I don't know how we combat that, because
No, it's tragic. It
It
really is. And the organization we met with yesterday is actually really focused on educating on how to report it, particularly in the hotel industry, because they said one of the problems they encounter is that people in hotels don't want to call law enforcement necessarily. They're afraid they're making accusations. So this organization, which is called, I think it's called Report Us, something like that, allows them to kind of report to somebody that's not law enforcement, works through it, and then they'll make the law enforcement referral. So hopefully we'll get people to be a little bit more open when they have some suspicion. But you're right, a lot of times there's not even a suspicion.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General. Oh, another question, Attorney General.
No, I'm through the
Okay,
book.
let me ask now, I'm sorry.
You can ask now.
I think this is year 6 for me, between budget and appropriations, and I've asked this question every year. Would you talk to us a little bit about where your office is in terms of sunshine requests? Is there a backlog today? You probably expect
So
that
it's the
question.
lowest backlog in a long time. We're at about 50 or 60 cases. One of the things I've changed a little bit in the office is we've been without a general counsel for some time. I'm pulling somebody out of the solicitor's office to come over and fill that role, which will supervise the full-time person who works on sunshine requests. But it definitely is a priority.
Okay, good. No, I'm glad to hear that. And again, been commending you a lot today, but really do appreciate that. That's been a big concern, I think, for a lot of us, as we do support true sunshine.
Yeah.
And transparency, accountability, all of those things. My next question's a little bit tough, and I've asked this in different forms on different cases that the Attorney General's office has been pursuing, that I struggle with in terms of how much are Missouri taxpayers on the hook for a particular case that your office is behind. And so I don't know exactly how you can answer that, if it's how many man hours your office has put into it, or how you're comfortable. But one case in particular, that you talk about stuff that keeps you up at night. This has been one of them. Many of us were actually there at the celebration after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl back in 2024. I think most people at this table were there during the horrific shooting. And as you all remember, there was a photo of Denton Loudermill that was shared widely on social media. So he, again, a father of 3, sitting there in his Chiefs sweatshirt, and he's shown handcuffed on a curb. He was not associated by any way with that shooting. However, quickly he was one of the people who they apprehended, and there's the picture shared on social media of him sitting there in his handcuffs, and some folks started calling him an illegal immigrant. We know that post was shared by Missouri lawmakers, and at the time, it was Attorney General Andrew Bailey essentially said that he would defend the lawmakers in court. His family pursued the defamation lawsuits, and I believe there's still 2 pending. Unfortunately, Mr. Loudermill has died. His family has shared that and those posts that were shared about him truly ruined his life. And unfortunately, he died a short time later, but his family continues to demand justice. My understanding is that your office is still defending these lawmakers in court today. So can you tell us a little bit about where those lawsuits are? And again, how, if you can put a number in terms of resources that have been used on these cases as they've worked their way through the process?
So I can't quantify it. We can try to quantify it. My understanding, it's 1 to 2 lawyers who, this is just one of many cases that each of them are handling. And it is tragic, and my heart goes out to Mr. Loudermilk's family. Aside from what was specifically said here, the reason it's important that we continue to defend this case is we're defending the principle of legislative immunity, and that, you know, legislators can't be sued for their political speech. And that will be true for all legislators, and this case is going to set some precedent, and that's why we think it's important to continue to defend it, because who knows what member of either body might be sued next in similar circumstances. And obviously, defending a case like this could cost that individual senator or representative hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we can say, you know, if we can affirm the precedent that political speech is protected, it will be helpful to everybody going forward.
Okay.
I know you don't love that answer, but that is the position of the office.
Okay, and I understand that's, and obviously it will work its way through the court, and we will see what happens here. But would you be able to work to try to quantify that? If you said 1 to 2 attorneys, again,
Yeah.
how many hours? I would appreciate knowing that
Absolutely.
information. Thank you.
Senator Washington.
Hi.
Hi.
Real quick, so if I post something inflammatory that someone doesn't like and I'm sued for slander or libel, you're going to rep me, right?
Well, if it's political speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to rep me.
That would be my intention, yes.
No, I don't want to hear intention.
Well, I have to know the
because
specific facts of what was said and all
okay,
those.
because this was inflammatory language. And it was proven to be inflammatory. It's inflammatory language. And so I thought that the job of the Attorney General was to represent Missourians, and to protect us, but not to spend our dollars on repping reckless behavior of the elected officials that should be, frankly, more mature in what they're doing. We're in a very volatile time, especially with social media and people saying anything they want to say. I don't really do social media, but if you're going to rep me, I'll go out and say a whole bunch of stuff today. And if you don't rep me when I say it, I'm going to sue you, because that's not right. And despite the fact that our president doesn't believe in DEI and all that, if you don't rep me, the first thing I'm going to say is you didn't rep me because I'm a woman and I'm black. And I know that that's not who you are.
That's not who I am.
But explain to us what your understanding of what the role is, because I always, for the 30 years I've been doing that, I've been doing this, I thought the AG's job was to be the attorney for the people.
Well, but we also are the attorneys of the state. And
Have
those
you
who are-
repped a legislator before?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that 70% of the total cases in our office are defending labor and employment claims brought against Missouri state employees.
That's different than the elected officials. So if you guys could get me information on what elected officials you have repped before, specifically with
Absolutely.
slander and libel type matters, and any other tort.
I'll do it for sure.
Because I just, we've had people that have stepped down in this building before I even got here for something they may have said, and nobody from AG came to represent them. People who have done a lot of things that are politically motivated, and they have not enjoyed a free attorney or two attorneys. Instead, they go to places like your wonderful old firm and pay $1,250 an hour. So I have nothing against my colleagues. One of them is one of my best friends in this building. We have sat together 3 years in the House and now on our third year here in the Senate. So I'm not opposed to that. And I understand it was a retweet, but I think that to it's almost like your child can do whatever you want they want to do, and they'll receive no punishment for it. So then they won't learn from it, and they continue to do that. So if we can get some of those numbers that we've done, and then let's figure out what actually should we be spending our dollars on representing when our legislators are being reckless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a good
Chairman.
weekend.
You too. Appreciate it.
Sir, Missouri Office of Prosecution. Please come forward. I think the chair, every question is good, but I probably should have been grumpier, right? So I won't be grumpy at you, but let's move on.
More than happy to. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Locke Thompson. I'm the Cole County Prosecuting Attorney. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My name is Locke Thompson. I'm the Cole County Prosecuting Attorney. I'm usually here testifying on legislative stuff. Today I'm here doing something I have absolutely no clue about, which is presenting you the MOPS budget. Our our executive director, Tim Garrison, was unable to be here today. He had some matters to attend to back home in Springfield, so I was the sucker who agreed to step in and do this. I did not go to law school to ever deal with numbers again, so please bear with me. I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about what MOPS is. The Missouri Office of Prosecution Services basically does exactly what the name implies. We serve and give resources to prosecutors around the state. That's mostly in the form of doing specialized trainings, making sure that all prosecutors are able to get all their continuing legal education credits, give specialized training in things like child abuse investigations, domestic violence stuff, things of that nature. So, and then additionally, the office now contains a conviction review unit, which was established, I believe, last year, and I think 2 years ago. Okay, thank you. The only thing here, I think, in the budget, which, by the way, I know that our request matches the governor's recommendation. I think you'll see on page 10 a couple of FTEs just got moved from one line item to another, and that was just the conviction review unit. I'm happy to probably be unable to answer any questions you might have, but I'll do my best.
Thank you. Any questions?
I hate to do this to you,
Senator
Locke.
Washington.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
okay.
Where did the FTEs get transferred to?
They-
You can have him
I'll
get
make
back
sure
with
that
us.
we get back with you on that.
Okay,
But yeah,
yeah,
they were just in one line item and they got moved to
Yeah,
another
so if
one
you
of
could
ours.
get us that information, and also since we are talking about conviction integrity review, if you could get me like the number of employees that you have there in cases
Yeah.
that they are working on.
We have.
I don't want
Yeah.
the individual names or anything. I just want to know like how many they're working on and how many they refuse to work on.
Sure. I know that we just hired our attorney for that unit, the prosecutor who will be reviewing those cases. We just filled that position. I believe our investigator position for that is still open. So I don't know. I know generally that there have been a few cases that have been earmarked by other prosecutors who have said, hey, I'd like you to look at this case, but I'll work on getting you exact numbers.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Only because, we changed the law to include several offices in that. And
Sure.
so we want to make sure that our legislation is actually being followed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Crawford.
This is really more of a comment and not really directed at you, but maybe somebody else is listening. It was my understanding that the prosecutor raises came from this office, the recommendation. It was in a bill that we had on the floor, I think, last week. It's going to raise the salaries of our prosecuting attorneys like $16,000. And I love our prosecuting attorneys, but I wish that somebody would take into account that I represent a lot of small counties, and a $16,000 raise plus retirement is huge money
I'm
for our
actually,
counties And so, just a comment, just food for thought.
Due to talk to Senator Shore about that language actually after this, so.
Perfect. Well, like I said, it's a big difference between a big county paying that and a
Sure.
small county.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think that gets lost, and I represent all pretty small counties, so I'm very sensitive to that. So thank you.
Understood.
I have 18 of those same counties Senator Crawford's talking about.
I understand where Senator Crawford's coming from, but in a larger county, please make sure that we're providing adequate salaries for prosecutors. In St. Louis, I would like to ensure that we continue to be able to attract and retain good attorneys in that capacity. So, if I need to be looped in just to make sure that we're square on particular counties, I'd like to be involved.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Ju- ju-
I
just
was
for-
wrong. I thought you were done.
Just for clarity,
Yes.
our prosecutors are currently statutorily entitled to salaries that match an associate circuit judge or circuit judge.
Associate Circuit Judge, the national standard out there is for it to be a circuit judge or whatever the highest judge in that jurisdiction is.
Okay, thank you.
Dismissed.
Thank you.
Hopefully I don't call you back.
I hope not.
Angela? Director Nelson. Director Nelson. I deleted that other part, so. Yeah. Please, please come up and, I'd like for you to look at the clock. This certainly isn't your fault, and your department is as important as any department in the state, even though sometimes they may not feel like it. But if it's possible, let's try to be done maybe by 10 o'clock if I can get the committee to help me get that accomplished.
Sorry, regulatory business is very rough.
Does it beep when it backs up? That's what I'm waiting
No,
to
it
happen.
doesn't. No, it doesn't. And I've had complaints about that. But I am down to T-minus 2.5 weeks, and then hopefully can walk and drive again. So, looking forward to it. So, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Angela Nelson. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the current director of the Missouri Department of Commerce and Insurance. I am pleased to be with all of you here today and appreciate the opportunity to present our budget. I am joined here today by Tanya Henry, who is our DCI budget director, as well as two members of our department's executive leadership staff that I'll introduce behind me. First is Gina Clark, who is our department deputy director, and second is Josh Willey, who is our department general counsel. As you all know, consumer protection is the core mission and primary responsibility of our department across all the various industries that we regulate, and there's a lot. This mission includes ensuring compliance with established standards and practices to protect consumers from unfair treatment while also fostering competitive marketplaces. Our department ensures Missourians can access vibrant markets that offer a multitude of products and services to meet their needs. I want to start off by first highlighting our funding mechanism, and then I'll briefly introduce each of our 9 divisions and their leadership. Most of our budget, actually about 98%, is non-general revenue. Instead, our funding comes almost exclusively from most of our funding almost exclusively comes from the industries and professions that are regulated by the department who pay fees associated with licensure and regulatory filings. We receive approximately 1.5% of federal funding, which supports our Missouri SHIP program. That is our senior health insurance counseling program. Talk to seniors about Medicare, Medicare Advantage. Finally, we receive just 0.25% of our funding this year from general revenue, which currently supports the operations of the Office of Public Counsel. However, this general revenue funding will be eliminated from our budget by FY28 due to the provisions of Senate Bill 4, which this body enacted last year. Our department is organized into 9 divisions. Brenda Horstman is our division director of the administration division. That division is responsible for the general operations support of the department. It is also responsible for licensing about 300 over 300,000 insurance and other related professions in the state of Missouri. For the regulation of our insurance industry, our department has 3 separate divisions. Gina Thomas is our director of our Division of Consumer Affairs, which receives and investigates complaints from consumers against insurance companies and agents. I'm very proud to tell you, last year we had a record-breaking year in terms of the recoveries we made on behalf of Missouri consumers, $22.6 million. But news to all of you is that we have shattered that record in 2025, and we recovered an astounding $46 million on behalf of Missouri consumers in 2025. So that is more than double our prior record. John Rehagen is our Division Director of Insurance Company Regulation, which is responsible for ensuring the financial solvency of insurance companies. Very sexy stuff. It also reviews and certifies the premium tax filings. So when insurance companies pay those premium taxes to the state of Missouri, John and his team make sure that they've paid the right amount. Last year in 2024, insurance companies paid a little over $500 million in general revenue to the state of Missouri. Joe Ledoux is our Division Director of the Insurance Market Regulation Division. This division is responsible for reviewing insurance policy forms and rates to make sure that they meet the standards that you all enact, as well as performing market conduct examinations, which are really like audits of insurance companies, to make sure that they've not only complied with the law, but they've also lived up to the promises they've made in their policy. Additionally, we have the following Type 3 divisions. First of which is our Division of Finance, and Mick Campbell is our commissioner, joined behind us here. This division is responsible for examining and regulating Missouri's 191 state-chartered banks. The division also licenses and regulates consumer credit companies, mortgage broker companies, and mortgage loan originators. Emmett Bryson is our current acting director of the Division of Credit Unions, which is responsible for the examination and regulation of Missouri's 77 state-chartered credit unions. Missouri state-chartered credit unions have approximately 1.7 million members with assets exceeding $22 billion. Sheila Salon is our division director of the Division of Professional Registration, which supports 41 professional licensing boards and commissions in licensing and regulating the activities of over 540,000 Missourians in more than 300 different trades and professions. Lloyd Wilson is here today representing the Public Service Commission, which regulates our investor-owned utilities of electric, natural gas, steam, water, and sewer utilities. And finally, Mark Poston is the director of our Office of Public Counsel, which represents the public and the interests of utility consumers in proceedings before the Public Service Commission. So with that very brief introduction, Mr. Chair, unless you all have any general questions for me, I'm going to turn this over to Tanya Henry to walk through the budget. Oh, sure.
Senator May.
I just want to show my appreciation and thank you for the work you came down and did during the disaster on May 16th. You know, you came down and you helped people navigate the insurance process, and I really want to say thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We are very proud of that.
Senator Williams.
I want to second that as well, and I've had an opportunity to work with you prior to this role, so thank you for your leadership.
Senator Williams, thank you. Okay, Tanya.
Thank you.
As Director Nelson indicated, my name is Tanya Henry. I'm the Budget Director for DCI. I will try to be pretty brief. I've only got a few tabs here. So the initial core reallocation would be on the core on page 2. This is just an annual salary adjustment of $1,911. It's just moving from the pay plan appropriation up into our normal appropriation for salaries. On page 13, there is again another one of those core reallocations in a salary amount of $9,473. Again, it's just a
Okay. explain, because when we're looking at those pages, we're looking at the entire core, and you're telling
And you're
us the
talking
core
about- yeah, I'm
allocation,
sorry.
which is a page behind that, right?
Yes, I was
I
going
want
to
to
say.
make sure.
I think the page number for the actual reallocation is on 16 for this, but, and like I said, it's just moving from one appropriation, which has been set up in movers for pay plan specific changes, and then the intent is every year we would move any pay plan that was loaded into that into our normal
Well, thank you, Tony. But when people looked, the dollar that you were using, it's not
It's not on there.
identifiable
Yep,
there. So
I
I wanted
apologize.
everybody to understand that it's in a later page. And
Yes.
you might highlight like that in the
Yes.
future when you're done it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And then we do have an NDI on page 21. This is for the qualified membership organization new decision item. This is in the insurance divisions. It's requesting an additional $73,788 for PS. And 23,426 in E&E appropriation, and 1 FTE in the senior regulatory auditor. This is to support Senate Bill 79, which requires qualified membership organizations providing contract for healthcare benefits to utilize services of a third-party administrator.
This
So-
is the Farm Bureau bill, if you remember that last year. So this is the funding that allows us to assist those consumers if they have any issues or complaints.
And then page 24 is another NDI. This is for outreach and education. The insurance divisions are dedicated to community outreach and providing essential education to on the significance of insurance and available coverage options. Given the escalating frequency of the severity of storms, as has already been mentioned, this would just provide additional staff to be able to be on ground and providing those support services. An additional NDI on page 27. This is insurance market growth. This is for our special purpose life reinsurance captives. It's allowing for us to bring on some additional captives, and anytime we have additional FTE, we're able to support more businesses within the. And this is for 225,893 in PS, 43,778 in E&E, and 2 FTE. On page 48, we have another NDI. This is equitable compensation for our finance division. They are to achieve compliance with RSMO 361.170.3, and it's providing our examiners and professional staff with some additional salary increases. And then we have another core change. Oops, I have these. Let me know what page it's on. Sorry. On page 122, there's a one-time reduction of $1 million. This was intended to be a one-time expenditure, and so that's just the reduction for the nursing education incentive grants.
Okay, so it was a one-time expenditure, been expended or concluded.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then on page 176, we have a core reduction of $1,771,842 in PS. 755,573 in E&E, and 19 FTE, as the Office of Public Counsel will be moving out of GR and into the newly formed Office of Public Counsel Fund. And I'm sorry.
Senate Bill
yes.
4.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, in Senate Bill 4. And so this is just reducing that GR.
Reducing that
And there's
GR
a-
part, it's not, for anybody that's still listening, it's not getting rid of the office.
No.
It's a transfer that's going on. Very good.
Correct. And so the fund swap NDI is on page 180. This is just for the identical. Well, I will say we did leave a small amount in GR just for the first month or so to make sure we were getting revenue into the fund, just in case we need to pay a payroll or something like that. But that's the small amount that's there. The remaining request or the request for all of the current appropriations in FY26 moving into FY27 are going to now be in that Office of Public Counsel Fund. And again, that NDI is on 180. And then the final is a core reallocation of some funds in,
Page.
sorry, yes, sir. I was going to flip and then 199. And this is just moving funds from what is called there's certain buckets for PS and movers. And when this was coded, it was coded in normal salary, and this is just moving from normal salary into benefits and wages, and that's the only change for that. And that concludes the changes we have in our budget.
Adjustment to benefit wages, those core reductions there, because they were in the wrong place. I
Yeah.
think that number probably ends up there.
Yes.
Any questions from my helpers, my beloved senators? Thank you all for being here. I hope you were as well educated this morning as what I was as we listened to people doing. But with that, you may move on to the better part of your day as we head upstairs.
Thank you.
Appropriations Committee is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you all.